All right, Raymond. New week, new question. Here it is. As the GoldCast audience knows, Raymond does not know this question before the show begins. Raymond, fill in the blank. Week 1 against the Lions was...
almost a shit show.
This is the GoldCast.
Boom! Welcome to another edition of the GoldCast. We are the voice of the Bay. I'm your host, Rudy III, and with me is my brother, my co-host,
Raymond Solis the first, baby.
Boom! Raymond, week 1 is in the books. And, man, it was... That was a weird-ass game. Let's just get right to it. It was a weird-ass game. 49ers win. You know, it's interesting. When we were doing our predictions for this game, right? You had them at 32-10, I believe is what you said. I had them at 32-17. And if the game had ended,
I think I said 14. I think it was like 31-14, 35-14, something like that.
Okay. Had the game ended around the second quarter, you would have been pretty close. Had the game ended at the third quarter, I would have been pretty close. But lo and behold, there is a fourth quarter to be played, and it was pretty insane. Niners are up. The Niners are up. It's 38-17. And then the Detroit Lions go on this run that basically was aided by two major uncharacteristic turnovers from George Kittle and Deebo Samuel, who we're going to talk a lot about Deebo in a minute here. And they basically have 16 unanswered points to make this really interesting. It looks like they're on the verge of tying the game, but the 49er defense shuts Detroit Lions down. We get the ball, turnover on downs. It goes back to us. We end the game. For the first three quarters, the Niners looked really dominant. And I described this game. I thought this was the perfect game to begin the season on because it was like a slump buster game. And, we were describing this earlier, it's like when someone breaks up with their significant other and they go and like maybe they date somebody that's a little bit on a lower level than them, whatever that level is, but for some reason or other, they're not quite up to the standard of that usual person. You get a little slump buster. This is just one to, just to get the gears moving again, get everything working again. That's exactly what this game was for us. And for the first three quarters, the Niners looked every bit the world beaters we expect them to be for this entire season. But then those costly turnovers and pulling a couple starters out a little early really made the difference. And Detroit made it interesting. But to me, it was frustrating. I was never nervous. I believed the Niners were going to win the entire time. I was not nervous about that. I was more frustrated that we had allowed the Lions to come back into this game. But in the end, the Niners win 41-33. Raymond, I'm going to pass the mic to you. What were your thoughts on what was a very funky game?
Yeah, it was. It didn't really get funky until the fourth quarter, right? When Jason Verrett went down, which was by far, the most probably one of the most heartbreaking things I saw all week, with the exception of, the Ravens are the Niners this year, right? In terms of health. They had another running back go down. If you're a running back on the Ravens team, do your Hail Marys, stay away from black cats and ladders and broken mirrors, do whatever you got to do. But, when Jason Verrett went down, the fact that he immediately went to tears, told me everything I needed to know. Then I got a glimmer of hope when I just saw him on the bench with his head down. And then again, when he was walking, and then he stopped walking and realized that he couldn't do it and then needed two people to help him. And then he started sobbing again. And I was just like, man, my eyes welled up a little bit. And I just felt so bad because I knew what the feeling was, which was devastated. Totally 100% devastation. So, thoughts, good vibes, all 100%. This W that the Niners got tonight, I'm just dedicating it to Jason Verrett. I'm sure they did something to that degree too, because they were all feeling it at the end of the game. So shout out to Jason Verrett. So
Can I
sad.
say something about that?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, I agree too. Shout out to Jason Verrett. What an incredible comeback story. Was clearly our CB1 last year and just dominated and really, really played at the level that we believed he was capable of. And it's just really sad that this is such a it's not sad that it's a violent sport, but it's sad that it's a violent sport because sometimes the violence that this sport requires, some bodies just can't take it. And you get the Tom Brady's who are going to play till they're 100, and you get the Jason Verretts and the Jalen Hurts of the world that are hurt. It seems like every time they go on the field, they're hurt.
Raheem Mostert.
Yeah, Mostert, which we'll get into all of that more on Thursday, of course, when we really do a deep dive on the injury report. But in general, I agree. Like, it was just really sad to see Jason Verrett go down like that, especially after what a tremendous comeback he's made. And, I hate to say it, but you said it off air earlier. There's a good chance that this is the last time we see him in a 49ers uniform and maybe even in the NFL. And that just really sucks because with a guy that talented who's worked that hard to come back, clearly his love for the game is tremendous. And you always want to see a guy who's putting in that kind of work. You want to see it pay off with more success, and that's really what we thought this second year was really going to be about for Jason Verrett. And so, yeah, thoughts and prayers, and thank you so much. You were a great 49er, and I hope whatever comes next, you do not have the same amount of trials and tribulations in the next, whatever your path is, even if it's coming back to the NFL, whatever the next path for Jason Verrett is. I hope it is a fortuitous one.
Definitely shout out, piggyback, and yes, like I said off air, I think that's the end. Unfortunately, I really do. But, I hope that's not the end of his NFL career. There are other paths in the NFL outside of what he was doing.
Coaching. He could be a commentator. He could be an on-air personality. He could go ESPN, NFL Network.
I think, assistant cornerbacks coach, something like that. I think that's where he would, that's where I would imagine, or that's where I would hope. We'll just have to see. I think he's going to take a long break, to see like that kind of injury. If that was me, part of me would be so angry, like I wouldn't even want to look at a football field, and it was the turf. He was backpedaling. He stopped to make a break. He slipped a little bit, and then boom, the knee just gave out. So, based on that, it almost seems like it was bound to happen. If not that, maybe later in that same game or perhaps the next game, I don't want to wish that or project that or spend too much time on that, but it's just unfortunate. But, if there is a silver lining, it's that this is happening now, and not a deeper part of the season, to get back to the football aspect of this, and that the Niners have an opportunity to regroup here. We know that Richard Sherman is still an option if he's in the right mental space to come back and play. We know that the reason why he fell out of his element was because he was most likely struggling with the idea of transitioning out of pro football and out of, the limelight of being such a prominent and, efficient pro throughout his career. So, there's still an opportunity for him here. And, it's obviously not where the teams are coming to him. It's because it's circumstantial is why we need him, because we weren't necessarily looking his way before this injury to JV. But yeah, to go back to the game, the fourth quarter is really the only quarter that bothered me the most. I thought the defense was great, with the exception of the run defense. The run defense definitely got gashed, so would like to see D'Amico Ryan shore that up. Javon Kinlaw up the middle was clearly needed. That was something that was missing from the defensive front. We didn't have DJ Jones in the middle either. That's another force that's very good against the run. Not sure where he is right now. At least, he's not on the stat sheet, so he did not play. Offensively, Jimmy Garoppolo, outside of the opening series fumble, was absolutely nails. Extremely efficient. Pretty much.
Let me just say one thing. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. For all the Jimmy doubters and all the Jimmy haters, you just saw him put up numbers that were right on par with the Saints game of 2019 in week 1. No interceptions, over 300 yards passing and a touchdown. Was absolutely monstrous out there. And that is week 1. He's delivering that in week 1. And I believe, I don't want to get too much in the weeds here. We've been in the weeds a couple times already. But if Jimmy was able to just play full seasons, this would be the kind of production you'd get out of him every week, week in and week out.
Yeah, and this is what you can expect from Jimmy Garoppolo. Again, Kyle Shanahan runs a very balanced offense where it is efficient, short to intermediary passes. The players that he selects for this offense are their skill set. One of their primary skill sets, the one thing that's similar across the board of all these, everyone from tight end, fullback, running back, wide receiver, slot receiver, all of them have one trait in common. They have the ability to get yards after the catch. And that is George Kittle's one of the best at it. We know that Deebo Samuel's also one of the best at it. Brandon Ayuk, although he was completely absent from this game, has that ability when he's in the lineup. The same can be said for Raheem Mostert. Elijah Mitchell, the rookie running back, showed a little bit of that today, although he was more involved in the run game than he was the passing game. Trent Sherfield did well. Mohamed Sanu got into the mix. Kyle Juszczyk obviously got his usual 1 to 2 targets. So there was, it was there. The quarterback was efficient. 17 to 25. Look, it's not going to be lighting up the stat sheet like Jared Goff, 38 of 57. So when you're in that kind of volume, that's not good because it usually means you're trying to play catch up, and that's exactly what Detroit was trying to do. And they got lucky in the fourth quarter because once JV went down, Kyle Shanahan got nervous. He got conservative, started pulling the starters in fear of further injury. And what happened? The real scary thing here that is going forward that is obviously a concern. There is no depth on this team. There's no pass rush depth. There's no secondary depth, at least this game. Perhaps people weren't playing up to their potential, but, once the corners got pulled, there was no Emmanuel Mosley today, mind you. It was not good. Not good at all. Jared Goff carved up the rookie cornerbacks, was targeting them.
Jared Goff.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Jared Goff's no slouch. He's just not, he's just not great, but he is a Pro Bowler, so let's keep that in mind.
That's true.
But he's a system quarterback. He benefits from the system. Sean McVay made him a Pro Bowler. He wasn't, a Pro Bowler waiting for Sean McVay. And so, I enjoyed the game. We got the W. I wasn't really nervous in the fourth quarter up until maybe the last possession of when they actually started to drive and get close to the red zone. Then I got a little nervous. And then the defensive starters came in and really kind of clamped the doors down. And then you can see just the vast black and white difference of when the starters came back in and how much more efficient they were with those starters. The problem is that one of those guys are missing. It's really, really difficult for this team, even against, a mediocre Detroit offense to keep pace. So imagine what that would be like against, a more capable offense that we're going to face numerous times throughout the season, especially within our own division. It's going to be really tough. So the Niners need to do something about the depth here because from what I saw out of game 1, and obviously this is not something to panic about because things will get polished, players will get better and progressively get better over the course of the season. But what I saw from game 1 from the depth, not so good.
This game for me, it sucks. It sucks we had such a rough fourth quarter because for the first 3 quarters, 3.5, I'm loving this game. I am. This is exactly what I expected it to be, and it does feel from the fan perspective that we kind of ended on a sour note, right? We ended kind of like. Meanwhile, you've got the Seahawks, the Rams, and the Cardinals. The NFC West swept. AFC West also swept. The West is just out of control right now in both conferences, but this week anyways. But they all look like the world beaters that they're capable of being when all those teams played on all cylinders. And the Niners did for 3 quarters. It's like, it's the ego in me. I'm like, I still want us to, if the Rams are going to do that and the Seahawks are going to do it and the Cardinals are going to do it, I want the 49ers to do it too. It's like, I want us to be lockstep with them. Now, again, I'm not worried. I still think that this team is better than those 3 teams. but it was just a frustrating note to end on. But let's also go back and talk about just what a dominating 3 quarters the Niners had. They were fantastic. My boy, Debo was making business moves. The Niners were making business moves. They were just kicking the Lions' teeth in for those first 3 quarters. I absolutely loved it. Like we've gotten through the bad, let's go back to the good. Jimmy G balling, Elijah Mitchell balling, Deebo Samuel balling, defense balling. It was a fantastic game. I was waiting too. It was right. I was waiting. I was literally saying, I was with some friends. I was literally saying at the house, I was like, I know the Jared Goff interception's coming. It's coming. We're going to get one good one. He's going to give us one good one. And he did. And it broke their little backs. We knew it was coming. And the Lions, for the most part, look overwhelmed. They looked ill-prepared. And the Niners basically did whatever the hell they wanted on either direction of the ball. The speed that we saw in the preseason was even more exasperated here. I mean, the Lions didn't look like they did not belong on the field for 3 quarters. And it looked like they wanted to be anywhere but on the field with the 49ers. Jared Goff, I'm sure he's seeing all kinds of spooks out there. And, he's got the ghost of Sean McVay's floating head above him and all kinds of crap. But the first 3 quarters, Raymond, let's talk about that. The Niners balled, making business moves.
Yeah, I think Kyle Shanahan saw a clear mismatch, and there was an exploitable matchup, on the Deebo Samuel side of things, and they just kept feeding him the ball because Deebo Samuel was just shredding them. Deebo Samuel absolutely shredded this secondary to where it was really kind of him and George Kittle was next on that list in terms of, targets. But Deebo got the lion's share. More than 50% of all targets went to Deebo Samuel yesterday. 12 targets total, 189 yards, 1 touchdown. I mean, he was absolute nails.
Jimmy G loves Deebo. They had a great connection in 2019
He does,
too.
And I think also, Deebo was dusting the secondary. And I think Kyle Shanahan knew it. I'm sure that Jimmy was, catching him on some plays in progression, but also at the same time, Kyle Shanahan was also dialing up that number because he saw an exploitable matchup and took full advantage of it. Just like when our rookies came in, Jared Goff and the offense, started targeting those rookies, rightfully so. Take advantage of those rookies, test them. It's going to be hard for them. And it was. So, time needs to pass for these guys to get experience, to get better. But, from what we saw there, I mean, this was just, a solid, the offense, other than the hiccup of the Deebo Samuel fumble and the Jimmy Garoppolo fumble from the center, which thank God it was the first series and not like at a pivotal moment in the fourth quarter where the game's on the line. Although Deebo Samuel caused that fumble.
He was so upset too. Look, he was shitting bricks on the bench. He had that look at his face like, oh my God, if I lose this game for us, I'm going to jump off a bridge.
And Kyle's going to hate my guts for like a week. So very efficient offensive game, 104 yards on the ground. Lion's share coming to Elijah Mitchell. Raheem can't stay healthy. Mostert had 2 carries, 20 yards, looked pretty good at first. And then, sure enough, the thing that Raheem Mostert is also consistent at started to reared its ugly head once again. He will join the IR, and he will be out for the foreseeable 8 weeks. Very unfortunate for the Niners to lose 2 bona fide starters in just week 1, although they were players that you kind of expect that from, not so much some of the other players going forward, but although, D Ford could be on that list. Nick Bosa's still young, so even though his family has the history, it's a 50-50 shot that he's really healthy or runs into some other kind of injury throughout the season. But I'm less worried about him and more worried about someone like D Ford or someone like that. But outside of that, everyone played great. Fred Warner was great, led the team in tackles, 11 total. Jaquiski Tartt back in the lineup. He played great despite, what he dealt with coming into the game. He had 2 TFLs as well. Aziz Al-Shair also had 2 TFLs and 2 pass deflections. Great job by the linebacking core of this game. The linebackers are probably the best thing about this defense right now. They're the healthiest. They're the most consistent, consistently can stay on field. Dre Greenlaw, big play. Dre got his pick 6. That was excellent. So he continues to keep pace with Fred Warner in terms of efficiency. And Fred Warner, the captain, just absolute nails, leading the defense, calling the plays, always in the right position. It was great. And we saw that Jimmy Ward, Iron Man, went down for a little bit, but then came back in and finished the game. So that was nice to see, especially because, the rookies were not ready for the game. Ambry Thomas played, didn't look all that great. Diamador Lenore played, not always great at times. Even the safety, the new kid, Telefunga, he came in a little bit for Jimmy, but didn't do anything spectacular.
But it's also, just so we get it right, it's Telanoa Hufunga.
Telanoa, yeah, Hufunga, or Huff, as he's called.
That's even easier.
Yeah. So, we've run over this a few times. I just think the turnovers, you got to fix the turnovers. George Kittle, ball hit him in the head. It was just kind of a bad bounce. Deebo Samuel, does hold the ball a little loose when he runs. He still has that habit. And, Jimmy, that was just a miscommunication cue between him and Alex Mack. They actually worked on it on the sideline. If you were watching the game on television, they started working on it immediately after that series. And guess what? Jimmy was absolutely perfect from that moment onward. Nothing to worry about. Trey Lance getting his first touchdown pass. I did not expect him. I thought they were going to call his number to run, but they called his number to throw, and it was perfect. It was short. He caught it. Touchdown. Clean. In fact, I was like, whoa, first touchdown of the season goes to Trey Lance over Jimmy G, but Jimmy G was stoked. He was hopping on the sideline, congratulated him. So great team spirit there. The one thing that kind of looks like a really exploitable weakness right now is that when Trey Lance's number gets called, the defense knew it was coming every time. Oh, he's going to run. He's going to run. One time he hands it off to the running back. The other 3 times, the other rushes he had, the rushing attempts he had 3 carries, 2 yards, less than a yard average. So not a very good debut against a defense that is, not all that great against the run, as it proved against the rest of our running attack. So Trey Lance got shut down really easy. I thought all those plays were super predictable. So I'd like to see that, that's obviously going to evolve as the season progresses, but not a great debut for the running aspect of Trey Lance's game. I think that will be a much more dangerous component when he's actually in the mix throwing as well.
I agree. And it was great to see him get his first touchdown. That was very exciting. Overall, an excellent showing by the 49ers for most of the game. And the great news is that all the mistakes that we saw at the end were simply that. They're mistakes, easy to fix. The Lions looked very much the team that was not on our level, and the 49ers looked very much like a team that is going to contend for the NFC. And I look forward to this week coming up. But what say you, GoldCast Empire? How did you feel about that fourth quarter? How did you feel over the first 3? Let us know in the comments. Go to youtube.com/thegoldcast. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell. And so concludes another edition of the GoldCast. We are the voice of the Bay. I'm your host, Rudy III. And with me is my brother, my co-host,
Raymond Solis the first, baby.
Boom! We'll see you next time. Stay tuned and stay hyphy.